Hello, everyone. This is Professor Jeff Wilkerson at Luther College, talking to you once more about what to see in the night sky, this time for the week of January 25th. Oh, we have a special treat for you this week. You get to hear some Jeff stories, which I know is the only reason you tune in, is to hear me tell stories about my background. And what I'm actually going to do is another treat. I'm going to propose an entirely new entity, a new concept, if you will. That is, we've talked a few times about the stars of the summer triangle and looking at the stars of the summer triangle and being impressed by how you can see those year round, not just in the summertime, and thinking about that as a marker in the sky a little bit. We're going to propose a new idea of the winter triangle. So if this takes off, remember you heard it here first, folks. My idea of the winter triangle, and it's not a triangle of stars, it's a triangle of fuzzy objects that you can see in the night sky. And these objects are things that well, I'll tell you why I'm thinking about this week. So my wife and I have been teaching a course this January term for our nursing students who are at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. And this is an online course as we're working through this, and it's about recreational use of the natural world. And we've talked a little bit about the national parks. And we've seen some of Ken Burns' National Parks documentary. And there's quite a bit in there about Yosemite in California, the mountains in California. And it got me to thinking about the time that I spent one very cold night in the mountains there. I used to backpack and camp and hike in the mountains of California here in the United States. And the one night I was lying in a sleeping bag, very, very cold night, not sleeping, and the ground was very hard. The pad was not providing too much comfort between the hard ground, and it's one of those moments where you lie there and you think about the choices that you make in life, wondering about the things that I could have been doing rather than lying on that very, very frozen cold ground in the cold air and trying to sleep. And as I was lying there, it was a beautiful night in the mountains, and it was clear. And I could see, and oftentimes I like to sleep outside rather than in a tent or under some kind of cover, which would of course made it warmer. But again, we think about the choices we make. And what I could see was three fuzzy objects that I was watching in the night sky above me. And this would have been earlier in the year, not January 25th week. This would have been in November probably when I was doing this, and so these would have risen earlier. Would have risen later at night, and so that is, I would have seen them later at night if they're earlier now, so you can go out right after dark and see them. So this would have been in the middle of the night, and I saw these three fuzzy objects that I could see pretty clearly with my naked eye there, without any telescope or binoculars or anything. And it turns out that these objects were M31, the Andromeda Galaxy, and M33 in Triangulum, a big face-on galaxy, and the double star cluster. I know we may have talked about M31 in one of these videos earlier. Go back and look at them all and enjoy it and then see. And I know we talked about the double cluster, or I'm pretty sure we did at one point. Open star clusters, two star clusters that were born at the same time out of the same cloud of gas right there together in the plane of our Milky Way galaxy. And these, without binoculars, without optical aid, that looks like a fuzzy patch to your naked eye. You need a pretty dark sky to see any of these without optical aid. This one and this one, the Andromeda Galaxy and the double cluster, are the brightest and the biggest. And so if you have pretty good dark skies, you should be able to see them pretty well. This is our nearest neighbor full-size galaxy. It's in the constellation Andromeda, Great Square Pegasus. And if the upper left corner of the Great Square Pegasus, as you move off, you have a sort of cornucopia of stars. You move out two, and you go up the same distance from the bottom one to the top one on up to M31 right up here. So you'll see this fuzzy patch up there. I first saw that, again, you get great stories. I first saw that in the farm that belonged to my mother's parents. And when I was in high school, and I saw that rise over the horizon, a big splash of light. It looked like phosphorescent paint. Somebody had just taken a brush and slashed it on the sky right there. I didn't know what it was. And I was out looking at a meteor shower, and I had to go home and figure out what it was I was looking at. And figured out this was the Andromeda Galaxy, hundreds of billions of stars. Very big galaxy, looks like a fuzzy patch, but it's the biggest and nearest of these galaxies. This galaxy, M33 in Triangulum, to find it, If you can find the Great Square of Pegasus and then move off the Great Square of Pegasus in this cornucopia, you would move down about the same distance the other direction from the bottom star in the cornucopia line. There's M33. M33 right now is about halfway down to Mars. We looked at Mars last week. So we talked about Mars and its conjunction with Uranus, and now hopefully you're out there as we're taping this one. You're out there watching that right now. And so it's about M33 right now is a little bit closer to M31. So it's not quite the halfway point. It's just up just a little bit, and it's to the southwest, to the right of the line that would connect Mars to M31 up this direction. Now, M33 is often used as a test for your sky. It's very hard to see. It's facing us. It's a big galaxy, and it's pointed right at us, flat on the sky. Okay, and so you see it flat on the sky. You're looking through the thin part of the galaxy, and it has what we would call a low surface brightness. There's a lot of stars there, and it's bright, but they're spread out over a big area, so the surface brightness isn't that much brighter than the sky background typically, and it's really hard to see that. And for me, that cold night that I spent in the mountains in California, I was seeing it mostly with my averted vision, with the rods on the sides of my eyes that gather more light. So if I were looking up this direction more toward M31 or toward the double star cluster, I could see M33 pretty clearly. When I tried to look right at it, it tended to go away. And I needed to look off to the side just a little bit. So people often use that as a measure of how good your skies are. If you can see it without optical aid, then you have pretty good dark skies. So see if you can locate that across here. Now, go ahead and cheat a little bit. Use your binoculars from last week. You were using these binoculars to measure, to look at Mars and Uranus in conjunction here. And so now use the same binoculars to slowly scan up this way and see if you can see M33. The more magnification you have, the harder it's going to be to see. It's actually going to just disappear. It's going to fizzle into that background. So move very slowly when you get in this region. Get dark skies and scan very slowly with your binoculars and see if you can pull that out. And then do the same thing with the double cluster. The double cluster, if you follow this cornucopia of stars up this direction, then you keep following the top row of stars, and about the same distance, but from the last two of those the last two stars in the row in the curve of Andromeda, you'll move up that same distance. You'll find the double cluster. Double cluster is big and bright, and you have a pretty good chance of seeing that without binoculars or any optical aid, even if your skies aren't perfect, even if you don't have the very darkest of skies. So you have that's your best chance right there. With binoculars up there, then you can start to see these are star clusters. That's actually thousands of stars that you're seeing there, instead of a fuzzy patch these are stars too, but they're so far away that any instrument you're using is not going to pull those into individual stars unless you're using a professional grade telescope. So the other way to find the double star cluster is from Perseus. Perseus is over here. Perseus has a sort of J of stars, and I know we've talked about Perseus here before as well, pointing right up at the back of Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia looks kind of like a W with this side lying down a little bit weakly, and so the double cluster, this is up here off the scale. We couldn't quite fit it all on the board so that we could see it, but we're pointed up at Cassiopeia that way. But see if you have dark enough skies. If you can sit back, go out after dark, anytime after dark right now, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and see if you can see in your skies. Are your skies dark enough and clear enough that you can see the fuzzy triangle of three objects right there that we're going to call the winter triangle henceforth. So that's our winter triangle of objects. And if you can't see them, see if you can get binoculars and start to try to pull them out. Start to try to find Mars. Move on a line from Mars up through Andromeda and see if you can find the Andromeda Galaxy. I started the Great Square of Pegasus. Move out, move out, move up. Out, out, up. And find Andromeda up that direction. And if you have decent skies at all, they're pretty dark, your binoculars are really going to help you right there. Then you just keep moving on up this row of stars right here and find the double cluster, and then try to pull out the Triangulum Galaxy, M33. So that's what we got this week. It's a little bit of a challenge this week, observing wise, but it's a challenge that's worth it. If you have really good dark skies, if you can go outside, if you're up in the mountains someplace and you can go outside, or you don't have any light pollution around you, you have a pretty good chance of seeing these three objects, or at least seeing M31, Andromeda Galaxy, and the double cluster. And then maybe you can add M33 in there. So I hope you have good skies this week. Good luck observing, everybody, and we will talk to you again next week.